Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. So in this video we are going to take a look at the LR Full Power Frieza, who's one of the two new DFE units that were brought out with the worldwide celebration. So Frieza is a Sworn Enemies and Planet Namek Saga lead. Sworn Enemies looks like a pretty good category. It's basically all the main villains from the main arcs of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And in terms of super attack effects, he raises his attack on his 12 key and raises his defense on his 18 key. Both of them have Mega Colossal as their modifier, which means there's very little drop off in damage between his 12 and 18 key, which is pretty impressive. Then he is a key +2 in attack and defense of 100%, launches an additional super attack within the same turn after receiving an attack, the medium chance of launching an additional super attack as a second or third attacker in the turn. Plus he gains an additional attack and defense of 100% for 6 turns. From the start of turn, attack 50% from the 7th turn onwards, key +1 at the start of each turn, plus an additional attack of 50% when there is a superclass enemy, and guaranteed critical hits when there is a Goku enemy. Basically, he is the exact opposite of Goku, with an active skill that can only be activated when facing a superclass enemy, which is at 30% or less health. So Frieza is pretty damn good. He, in terms of build, is pretty much a crit only unit, with as little additional as possible. The reason why is because he can already fire off up to 2 additionals a turn quite easily. So what you want to do is you want to try and maximize his crit to maximize his big boy damage. His additionals have very little fall off in terms of damage, so Frieza will just be dishing out big, huge damage. In terms of links, he's got a pretty solid link set, a nice mixture of Wicked Bloodlines units there, and enough to get him going with the other units on the Sworn Enemies category. And then in terms of his categories, he's on plenty, 12 categories in total, but the Terrifying Conquerors, Wicked Bloodlines, Sworn Enemies, Exploding Rage, Interplanetary Destruction, Inhuman Deeds, and of course the Planet Namek Saga. The main buddies you're going to want to pair this Frieza with are going to be other Frieza final forms, or pretty much any Wicked Bloodlines enemy. They're going to be your number one go-to units, but there are some alternative options. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how Frieza does on the Planet Namek Saga team. So the nice thing about Frieza is with his banner came his best, well, one of his best running mates in the form of the third form Frieza. Not only do they share 4 links I believe, but they also share the support for the Sworn Enemies category, so it's pretty damn good a combo. Of course, one of the nice things about Frieza is that he is an extreme class lead for the Planet Namek Saga, so it's provided some variety in terms of Planet Namek Saga leads. And also, pretty interestingly enough, he is also a pretty good individual category lead for the Sworn Enemies category. It's quite a fun little category, so that's also really good. A nice thing about him is a lot of the other Friezas, especially things like this third form Frieza, transforming Frieza, they all link really well with him. 4 or 5 links, and also are on a lot of his categories, so you have a lot of options now with the units that have come out with this event, so it's really good. Obviously, we can see here that Frieza has a 154% defense, 160 or so defense. That's a Frieza with a dupe. You can see my Frieza without one was sitting at about 120k. No real links active, no big bad bosses active or anything, which is obviously one of Frieza's primed links. But still really good stats nonetheless. Frieza will also raise his attack and defense on his raise his attack on his 12 key and his defense on his 18 key. So even though Frieza is losing that attack and defense after 6 turns, by the time you've stacked up enough attacks, he really should have basically replaced it. So it's really not too much of an issue for him. In terms of damage, this guy is pretty damn nuts. Like, he straight up is pretty loco. Especially if you get a dupe in him or you build him into crit with gear and with dupes and everything, he can do some pretty insane damage. I don't think a split is needed. I think definitely you should be aiming for as much crit as possible. Remember, if he gets hit before he fires a super attack, he's basically he is guaranteed an additional super, and then he can also proc additional supers off of that as well. So he can fire up to 2 or 3 super attacks in a turn, which is really nuts for a unit that has no drop off on his 18 key. You know, if he hits 4 million on his 18 key, his 12 key is gonna hit like 3.9. It's pretty nuts. So obviously, taking a look here at Frieza, we've got him paired up with a good support, 220 or so defense, more than enough, and then we'll get the 18 key, so that's going to go up. 219,000 defense is pretty good, considering it's a non-rainbow unit. I mean, yes, he does have support, but yeah, that's pretty much it. He doesn't even have big bad bosses fully link leveled or anything like that. So the card still has quite a ways to go in terms of defense. So this isn't even his max ability. This is just Frieza with some support. And yeah, looking really good. We'll see how much damage he does here. Oh, yeah. So as you can see, big upshot in damage. That's obviously from the support combining with his start of turn passive. And then of course we are also getting the assistance from the extra links. As you can see, there was very little drop off from his 18 to his 12 key, and he'll stack attack constantly, so this attack stat really will only just get higher and higher. So it's pretty nuts, like really, if you think about it, it already is pretty nuts. In terms of Frieza's best linking partners, there's a couple decent ones with 3 or 4 links, like for example this free to play Prime Battle LR Frieza. They share a solid 3 links or so there's something that you can keep your eye on. Unfortunately, Frieza locks people into place, so we're not able to pair him up with the final form Int free-to-play Frieza, who's also a really good option. They share 5 links. 161,000 defense or so, very solid. This is a 55% unit, by the way, so that's really impressive, and of course we'll get to see a good idea of Frieza from this. Nice numbers, nice attack stats, really good attack stats, and of course really solid defensive stats. The fact that he stacks defense, the fact that he stacks attack, means that he's going to have very little drop off. The only real issue with Frieza, if there's even an issue with Frieza, is possibly the leader skill. Planet Namek Saga is great that they got an extreme lead. It's a little bit unfortunate that it's still such a small category, and Sworn Enemies being a new category is fortunately one of the better new categories, but also it's still a little bit wonky. But beyond that, it's actually a pretty solid category comparatively to some of the other new ones that have come out. So overall, I actually think it was quite alright, the Sworn Enemies category. So that was a good look at Frieza there. We will look at Frieza on the Sworn Enemies category now. We've got a little bit more support going on. Remember, that was against an extreme class enemy, so it's not even Frieza's full power. It's not like we were looking at him against a super class enemy or anything like that. So realistically, we still have a lot more we can see out of Frieza, which is obviously pretty impressive considering the numbers that he was putting up. So we've got an interesting kind of combo here. We've got the LR Majin Buu and the Int Kid Buu who can be run on this team, which is pretty good. This team, the Sworn Enemies category, is actually quite nice. Like I was saying, it's all the cells, all the Friezas, all the Majin Buus, Super Buus, Kid Buus, and the Demon King Piccolos, which makes it quite an interesting category. I don't quite know why Omega Shenron and them weren't put on. Maybe because they were kind of like an overarching enemy that threatened the whole world instead of just being like distinctly enemies against Goku, maybe. Not entirely certain, but it's still quite an interesting category overall. And as you can see here, we've got a lot of links linked up with this final form. So we've got quite a nice little link set going on there. And we'll get a pretty good look at Frieza's damage. Remember, we are fighting a super class enemy. So yeah, you can see that jump up in attack damage there, and you can just see overall how Frieza is going to just demolish superclass enemies. The thing with Frieza, remember, he is gaining 1 key every turn as well, so that is a bonus for longer form events, but it is just something you're not really going to notice in short form events. That being said, pretty impressive run by Frieza. The stats we're seeing so far, pretty nuts, pretty good stuff. I would say Frieza and Goku look like they're on par with the anniversary LRs. I can't really tell which is better. I don't really believe in such thing as outright better units. I mean, you know, take Goku into something where they disable evasion, he looks a lot worse. Take Vegeta into something where you need evasion against physical type units, and he can still take some real big damage. So yeah, the point is there's no such thing as an outright better unit, but they definitely look like they are at least on par with the anniversary units. I definitely think they can output equal, if not more, damage. Defensively, they start off at a decent clip, and they can stack quite high as well. Obviously, they have a stacking mechanic, so that means that they are pretty good to go for long form events. Really impressive units overall. So we've got Frieza linked up here, 242,000 defense, pretty damn good. 5 links activated as well, which is obviously really impressive. And then we'll just get a good, decent look at how much damage good old Frieza does. So you can see he only shares 4 links with that support there, but that's not really too much of an issue. 242,000 defense, pretty damn solid as well. So overall, solid numbers. I think the numbers are there. There's not too much that needs to be said about them. Obviously, the active skill also exists. You can just see these big attack stats, like these huge attack stats. And yeah, just Frieza is just dishing out some real big damage. And he's going to do follow-up attacks, secondary attacks, and everything. Obviously, the Pycon decided not to attack us there, so we didn't end up getting to see a second super attack. But the nice thing about them is if you don't want to put them in first slot, you can put them in second and third slot, and they have a medium chance of generating an additional super attack as well. So let's say, for example, you're not getting a hit before the unit attacks in the first slot, you can just rotate them to second or third slot, and they will have a good chance at getting additionals. So they kind of like design them to be able to like constantly keep additionaling, which is really good. Then we have Frieza here, obviously only 120,000 or so defense. This is my one without a dupe, obviously no real support or links or anything of that nature, and he didn't really stack or anything at all either. So yeah, just a little bit lower on the defense, but I mean 120,000 is a really good starting point for a unit that hasn't attacked yet. It's pretty impressive, plus no support, no links, no anything really. So pretty nuts by good old Frieza there, and the key is going to help him in teams like Sworn Enemies and that, where he's maybe not linking up perfectly, but he, you know, does at least have the ability to gain some key each turn, and yeah, just not be so reliant on key links as necessary. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of Frieza. We'll take a look at his links now, and which links are most important. So in terms of Frieza, I think in terms of the links that are most important, it starts relatively simply. Obviously, Big Bad Bosses is probably the most important link, that big 25% attack and defense buff at max level. Then you get Strongest Clan in Space, Nightmare, which becomes a bit of a key link later on, Universe's Most Malevolent, which is a high attack link, Prodigies, which is a little bit of a weird attack link, Fierce Battle, a common attack link, and then of course we have Legendary Power. So Frieza has quite a few attack links from what you can tell, but in terms of Frieza, the one link that we obviously want the most is we're going to want Big Bad Bosses. So the reason you're going to want Big Bad Bosses is obviously just because when it gets to link level 10, it obviously becomes a flat 25% attack and 25% defensive buff, and that's a big defensive increase right off the bat for a unit like Frieza. For him to have that additional defensive increase at max level is very good. In terms of free-to-play options, there is this really solid metal cooler with big bad bosses, strongest clan in space, legendary power, and nightmare. He's actually a solid link partner for this Frieza if you do not have any other ones. And then of course we also have this Super Saiyan, Rose, and Zamasu, which could get an easy A at some point in the future. They also have big bad bosses, fierce battle, nightmare, and legendary power. So they don't have strongest clan in space, which is a little bit, obviously can't really apply to them. So because of that, they are losing a bit of a key connection with good old Frieza here, which is something, you know, that's a little bit unavoidable. Then in terms of everything else, obviously the most, the best units will be Wicked Bloodlines units. Units that have big bad bosses, universe's most malevolent, strongest clan in space, fierce battle. All these sort of links here are going to be the ones that are best. You also got Frieza. Frieza is a super solid option, strongest clan in space, universe's most malevolent, big bad bosses, and legendary power. So 4 very important links, probably literally one of the better running partners, plus being on most of the categories of the AGL Frieza. Then we have Frieza full power, can't link with AGL Frieza, obviously, but they can be run in the same team now due to the same name update, so that is a bit of a bonus. And then yeah, if we take away legendary power, we'll get left with a lot more options, a lot more viable options. We can put in something like fierce battle, universe's most malevolent, anything like that, and you'll get quite a few rock solid options. You can see there we've got the physical cooler, we've got the strength final form Frieza, we've got the tech transforming Frieza, and we also have the int sworn enemies support third form Frieza. So overall, there's plenty of options. The tech transforming cooler is also an option to be linked with this Frieza. So I don't have that cooler, which is why he's not showing up, but he's as good an option as the tech transforming Frieza and the physical cooler. So it's nice to see that there are a couple options, but there's plenty of 3 link units that you can use alongside these ones, but these ones will all have 4 to 5 links, and I highly suggest using all of them. As long as a unit has big bad bosses and strongest clan in space, it's pretty much a good running partner for this Frieza. Once you have those 2 links, you're basically set to go. Realistically, that's all Frieza needs to get himself up and off the ground. That being said, there are some other decent pairing partners. If we take a look at the free-to-play units, we do have that int final form Frieza. He's a super good unit. They share 5 links together. Obviously, his only real disadvantage is that he does not have big bad bosses. So that is something that's a bit of a loss for this unit. If he had big bad bosses, it would have been pretty good, but unfortunately he does not. But yeah, that's really going to be about it from me. There's nothing more really that I think we need to say about Frieza. Obviously his performance was exceptional, and he was very, very good overall. Like I said, the only other real unit to highlight is the Strength Transforming Cooler, who has a support type passive as well as shares 4 links with Frieza. So there's plenty of teams for you to run Frieza on, so go out there and place him on whichever teams you really, really want to, and you should be good to go. But yeah, that's going to be it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and always leave a like or leave a comment if you want to see something else, or if you have your own experiences with Frieza. How good do you think he is? But that's going to be it from me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, see you next time. Bye.